own the rights to this music. I do not own the rights to this music. We are going to allow a few people to come into the room. And just as a reminder, I am using a platform called StreamYard. And if you are going to be on the comments, you have to give StreamYard permission to show your name, or you can comment anonymously. It is completely up to you. But I want this to be as interactive as possible, so please join. Okay, we are going to let this music fade, and I'm going to get started, and we'll just let a few more people join in. I'm streaming on Facebook, and I'm streaming in my Facebook group, A Lioness Without Limits, and I'm streaming on my YouTube page. So please join in, and again, let's make this as interactive as possible. So today's Facebook Live is about cultivating new careers and pushing through painful pivots. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Happy Hump Day. I am Crene Salone, your career and women's empowerment coach, founder and CEO of Authentically You Academy. I am committed to serving professional women who are chronically unhappy and dissatisfied in their current job and at a standstill in their career. After 20 years in different leadership positions in corporate America, I've developed specific expertise that allows me to map your next steps and design and your pivot towards fulfilling work that aligns with your skill sets, values, and authentic personalities. Unfortunately, statistics show that the disparity between men and women in the workplace goes a lot deeper than just pay. Working with my clients, I see that women tend to have a harder time setting boundaries, pushing back against requests, and taking a stand for what's important. How many of you struggle with those very things? I want to see people raise their hand if this applies to you, but how many of you listening have considered a career change or even made a career change, I would say within the last 5 years? A recent Harris Interactive survey uncovered the following statistics on American job satisfaction. And it says about 33% believe that they have reached a dead end in their career, and about 21% are eager to change careers. Look, preparing for a new career is going to mean different things for different women. I did a short survey in a small group, and I was amazed at the number of women who thought that preparing for a new career automatically meant moving out of some sort of 9-to-5 and embarking on entrepreneurship. I'm going to put a small pin in entrepreneurship for just a little while, and we're going to revisit that later in this talk. Moving into entrepreneurship is very much one aspect of cultivating a new career. But I want to talk to the population of women who are still in their proverbial 9-to-5 careers and basically have concluded that their current situation no longer serves them mentally, emotionally, intellectually, and or financially. I want to specifically reach the women who are so grateful that they are still receiving a paycheck when so many are struggling, because let's face it, it's drilled into women to be grateful to God, and forbid you ever complain, and excuse me while I roll my eyes, but you have reached your absolute bottom in feeling uninspired, undervalued, unseen, apathetic to your work, underpaid, and quite honestly, just scared to change and ask for more. This is definitely you, and this is for you. It could be that a particular career path no longer fits your family dynamic. You can go from being a single woman, traveling all the time in your job, and having a whole spouse, and potentially adding children quickly to the mix. You can be in a career where you go from raising children to becoming empty nesters, and then you become caregivers for your parent or parents. Life always seems to happen while you are blinking, eating chips and a hot dog. Every woman's pain point is different, but the bottom line is that your career and current job is so dismal that something has to give. Forward movement is key. Feeling pain is acceptable. Crying is acceptable. Even having moments of temporary doubt are all acceptable. Giving up and standing still are the two things that are never, ever acceptable. I'll share a personal story about my painful pivot point before I give you some quick tools to know when it's time to pivot and why you need an expert to help you navigate that terrain. I was a single woman who chased opportunities with several Fortune 500 companies for years. Not only did I travel often because my job responsibilities required it, but I moved around to different cities and states. I even lived outside of the country for 2 years. I married my husband just a couple of months prior to turning 34 years old. I say that to say that I wasn't super young and fresh out of college when I got married. I spent quite a bit of time on my own post my education. When I got married, it was just me and my puppy dog. I just had to put my dog down last year in May. She was almost 16 years old. But the caveat here is that I married a widow. I married a man who was a single father to 2 small boys. My husband's first wife passed away and left him with a 3-year-old and a 2-week-old infant. When I married my husband, the boys were about 6.5 and 3 years old. So I didn't just get married. I became an instant full-time mother to 2 small children. I'm going to say that again. I didn't just get married. I became an instant full-time mother to 2 small children. Life was happening while I was blinking, working, traveling, and I guess eating chips and a hot dog. By the way, today's my husband's birthday, so happy birthday, babe. Since I'm talking about you, kisses, kisses. Oh, and this gets better. We were married in 2008 during the worst economic crisis in nearly a century. We had 3 homes, his, mine, and ours. We both needed to sell a house. I needed to move and find new employment so that I could be in the same city as my new family. I dated my husband the entire time that I lived in Toronto in Canada. Therein lies the painful pivot. When I married my husband, I had not lived long enough, let alone worked long enough to experience an economic cycle of this magnitude. It was scary and gruesome. I'm going to say that again. It was scary and gruesome. Luckily, I was gainfully employed. I hadn't been laid off yet, but I had to pivot to a new job or career to fit my new lifestyle. I was horrified, to say the least. I was making a life decision, not necessarily a career decision. And it was simultaneously the best and the most horrifying time in my life. I left a career in the consumer packaged goods industry where I traveled constantly. And I went to go work for a financial institution during the worst financial crisis in a century. I'm going to say that again. I went to go work for a financial institution during the worst financial crisis in a century. Who does that? Well, I did. Everyone's story is going to be a little different, but I can give you 3 telltale signs when it's time to redesign your career and make a pivot. Number 1, if you have reached a crossroads in your career and you are chronically unhappy and you know you must do something different for the sake of your emotional and mental well-being, it's time to pivot. If your personal situation has changed and your current job does not fit your family dynamic and you need more flexibility, it's time to redesign and pivot. Even though I feel like I have lived at least 3 different lives, one of my most painful pivots was due to a change in my personal situation. Number 3, you may not be chronically unhappy, but if you have bigger dreams and if you are not challenged and you have not had your skills assessed in over 5 years, it's time to consider whether you need to repackage and reinvent yourself. Repackaging and reinventing yourself doesn't always mean another degree and more education. Now, don't get me wrong, more education and another degree are just fine if that's a desire and if that's on your bucket list. You often don't realize the amount of knowledge, skills, and expertise that you have amassed over the course of decades that you can leverage to redesign your career and make more money. Now, let's talk about entrepreneurship. I'm going to remove that pen. Entrepreneurship can be exciting, but it's not for everyone. Now, designing your ideal career and pivoting towards fulfilling work that aligns with your skill sets, values, and authentic personality does not mean you have to go off on your own and create your own business. That said, since the pandemic, women are starting businesses at exponential rates, and it's an option if that's something you want to pursue. Being your own boss is certainly on the menu of items in order to right size your whole life and redesign a career that's just for you. As I said earlier, forward movement is key. Feeling pain is acceptable. Crying is acceptable, and even having moments of temporary doubt are all acceptable. Giving up and standing still are 2 things that are never, ever acceptable. Please don't think that me or anyone else have it all together. We do not. You are not the only one that might be in your car on the way home from work crying in the car or crying in the car on the way home from the grocery store. No, you are not the only one crying in the shower because you know for a fact that your situation is not sustainable. My call to action for every woman who is considering a career change or is considering a career pivot or whatever you want to call it is for you to set one intention for yourself each week. We have to be intentional with the things we do if we want to change. Start with trying to identify what is detracting you from your job satisfaction. I would love to be the career coach to go with you on this journey. Now, I will be posting some free training tools within the next few weeks. I will announce when and where. There are some amazing transformations happening at Authentically You Academy with my signature online course hosted on Thinkific. Please tune in every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for more insights on designing your career pivot and just general advice on what it takes to make moves that can change your life. Please follow Coach Crenay on Facebook and subscribe to Introducing Coach Crenay on YouTube. And I hope you all have a wonderful hump day. And please have a blessed week. And we will see you all next week. And don't forget to set your intention. I am going to be reminding you to set your intention. Join my Facebook group, A Lioness Without Limits. There are some fierce women in that group that will be able to support you through this journey. And so I'll see you there because most of my free training material will be in that Facebook group. Talk to you all next week. Have a great evening.